Hi, I've made some changes to my home solar power system, the recent upgrade I've done, which you saw in, well, a video where I did the installation. I'll link that in, but also here where I actually looked at an issue I had with the installation, which it was actually, my house was consuming negative power during the day. It was all sort of weird, and there was a system installation issue that was causing all that. And I won't go over the whole thing again. Watch that video because it's, you know, it's a little bit complicated to wrap your head around. But anyway, the end result of that is that I'm running basically two separate solar power systems. My existing 3 kilowatt Sunny Boy inverter system with the 12 LG 250 watt LG Mono X panels, and the new system that I had installed, which is the Enphase micro inverter system, and that uses 14 panels of 370 watts, and they're two separate systems actually feeding back into the house. And that's what, you know, caused all of the issues here. But anyway, we solved that. But then I was looking at the data and I thought, well, I've now got two monitoring systems. One is the solar analytics one, which I installed 5+ years ago now. I'll have to link that video in as well, installing that system, and it's been a great monitoring system. So it was measuring the entire house production and consumption, i.e. the production from the two different solar array systems plus the consumption of the house. But the Enphase system was wired up in such a way that it did exactly the same thing. It was measuring the entire house production and the entire house consumption, the production coming from the two separate panel systems installed. And I thought, well, I've got two systems which are producing exactly the same data. Like, what's the point of that? So I thought that, well, you know, that's probably a dumb thing to do. I should just like ditch one. Right? And I can't ditch the solar analytics system because it's integrated with all the inverters and everything else. Whereas my solar analytics system, it's an entirely separate system. It's got nothing to do with my Sunny Boy inverter or the Enphase inverter or anything else. It's its own standalone monitoring system. And I just recently renewed that. Actually, my 5-year plan was up, so I've renewed that again. And I thought, well, should I have this system? Why am I paying for this system to monitor that the Enphase can do exactly the same thing? Well, there's two reasons for it. And that's a very good question. I mean, if we look at, let's go back to the 3rd of May. I actually did this a couple of weeks ago. I'm a bit late on this video, but let's go back and have a look. 3rd of May, the yellow here is the production. This is the solar analytics system. I can make that a bit bigger for you. There you go. And you can see the production peaked here at like I think that's 4.15 kilowatts, around about there. And you'll see that the Enphase one should be, even though the graphs look a bit different, should be identical, except the colors are swapped. Now it's the blue, which is the production. And there you go, 4.16 is the power produced. There's a little bit of error there, but they're basically measuring exactly the same thing. And the orange one's the consumption here. If you have a look, we've got some peaks here, and it actually matches the purple peaks here. It's exactly the same. They're both monitoring exactly the same thing. And I just thought, well, that's pretty dumb. And on top of that, there's also the issue of like being able to analyze both of these systems like separately. Like if the Enphase system is measuring the Enphase production of the microinverters plus the old system, well, it muddies the data a bit. I can sort of extract them, but it's all a manual process, and it's really, I don't want to have to do that. So I figured that I would change my new Enphase Envoy system to just measure the Enphase production. That's it. It shouldn't care about that I've got an existing system on there. But as I explained in this video here, you can't just simply do that, because this 3 kilowatt system here, if you don't include the production, the arrow, the current coming this way and going up here, then the Enphase system doesn't know about it, and that screws up your consumption figure because the current transformer is up the top here. Anyway, I'm duplicating all the stuff in this video, but anyway, it screws it up. So somehow I've got to rewire this thing so that the Enphase Envoy system only measures its own production here, but the 3 kilowatt system here doesn't goof up the measurement of your load. You with me? Anyway, I'll get to how I did that in a second, but yeah, so that's what I wanted to do, and that's what I've done, and it's working fine now. I'll show you how I was able to accomplish this by a little bit of manipulation in the fuse box. Anyway, I've mentioned this on Twitter. The solar analytics system, from a data point of view, is much better than the Enphase Envoy system. Just look at the resolution possible here. You can see that it's 5-minute intervals here, right? 5-minute intervals. And I can actually go to live data as well. I can actually go up to a live monitor here and it'll actually go into 5-second data. You can see like this aqua color or whatever it is. This is like 5-second live data. So 5-minute resolution is very nice. I'm able to see all these little ripples in here. These are my fridges. I've got 2 different fridges and they run overnight. You can see like maybe both of them are on here and then off and things like that. You're able to see those little ripples. If you go over to this exact same data on the Enphase Envoy system, it's only every 15 minutes like this. And you can't really see the resolution of the ripples in there and that orange one, and the peaks, look at them, they're just daggy as, right? But this is exactly the same data. So the solar analytics system is much better, just, from a resolution point of view. So what I've decided to do is have the solar analytics system, I didn't touch this at all. So it's still measuring the total production from the 2 different solar array systems plus the consumption as well. So if I want to look at the total data for my entire system, which is most of the time, that's what I want to do when I'm analyzing whether or not what type of battery system I want to get installed. I'm still working on that, but I might talk about this later. And to do all this, you need like what your house is produce in total. So, the solar analytics system does that. But the Enphase system, I still like it. It's a really great system. It just doesn't have the same resolution, but it's really good for just monitoring the Enphase system. And that's it. I don't like it that it's actually was measuring the total production. So anyway, here's the last 7 days, and you can see that because we're like only a couple of days away from winter here in Sydney, and my systems aren't optimally, angled and things like that. They're not facing north, which is how you're supposed to. None of this south rubbish here in Australia. Got to have them facing north. They're not facing north, and there's some tree cover and there's sun angles. You can see how it like drops off very quickly in the afternoon and stuff like that. Yeah, it's not the best. So if you look at today's figure, we're peaking at almost 4 kilowatts, 3.93 kilowatts, something like that. And today we're actually getting on the Enphase system, we peaked at around about 3.3 kilowatts. So most of my power is coming from the new Enphase system because it's more optimally angled than the other one. It's still pretty poor angles. It's just how my house is arranged and stuff. Didn't want the solar panels directly on the front, then it wouldn't be directly north anyway, and it's all over the shop. But anyway, so yeah, I don't have the best arrangement on my panels. But you can see these have been like pretty perfect days here. And I have a 5.18 kilowatt system here. But we're only getting 3.3 kilowatts peak out of it here. And, which is pretty typical for wintertime. You're going to, there's really, and having not that optimal an angle either. So, that's to be expected. But of course, as I've explained, we will never get 5.18 kilowatts peak out of this system because we're limited by the clipping of the micro inverters. We'll only get the 4.13 kilowatts. That's it. And you can see back in when I first had it installed here, we were you probably, can't really, it's a bit hard to notice there, but basically that's the most I'll ever get out of this Enphase system due to the 295 watt inverters on my 370 watt panels. I've done a whole video explaining that, but that's the best I can ever get out of them. But this wasn't summertime, but even then, this was still in April, and you can still see that I was just approaching clipping there. So yeah, in summertime, I expect a bit of a flat top on the top there, right at that point. And by the way, for the UPV output fans, I've technically, I'm still got the data going there, although you can see in the last last couple of weeks and a gap over here, I haven't been exporting any data at all because it seems to be buggy. Now, PV output actually supports the Enphase system, so it can actually log in with an API thing, and it's buggy. Like I was able to get the exported the generated one and the exported one, but only sometimes. And it'd work for a couple of days, then it would die, and then I'd reset the thing, and then would only get the generated. Where was it? Yeah, it was only getting the generated data over here. It wasn't getting the produced data, and I don't know. I've given up on that. I think I'm just going to go back to have it to me manually uploading with the app on my phone every couple of weeks and just uploading my old Sunny Boy 3 kilowatt data. So I don't know if anyone know. Like, I thought about getting on the forums and trying to solve this problem, so it pulled in the Enphase data, but now the Enphase data doesn't have the full production for the house. So I was like, I don't know, what do I do with pvoutput.org? This is what happens when just slap together a couple of solar systems like this using different inverter technologies and stuff. It's just pain in the ass. So now PV output's like, meh. All right, let's see if we can explain this in DaveCAD. We've got our new Enphase 5 kilowatt system here. We've got our old Sunny Boy 3 kilowatt system here, and both of those produce power. They feed it into the house / the grid, of course, and nothing, of course, flows back into them because they're just producers. They're not loads. Now, of course, we've got our little house down here, and power flows into the house like this, and this is what we want to measure. We want to measure the load, and this is the wire which goes to our electricity grid here. But power can be flowing out of the house or into the house depending on how much power is produced here and total, and how much is consumed by the house. So I've got our Enphase measurement system and our solar analytics system measurement here. But as I said, the solar analytics isn't specific to this 3 kilowatt system because it's nothing to do with the Sunny Boy inverter. It's just its own independent thing. I've just drawn it down here. Now the Enphase system measures the production from the 5 kilowatt system using a little current transformer. And there's also another current transformer down here, which we wired in parallel like this, and that allows us to measure the total production from both of these solar arrays into the Enphase system. And the solar analytics system does exactly the same thing. There's a transformer there, and in parallel there's another transformer up there like that. So both systems measure exactly the same production. Now, of course, both systems need to measure the consumption, so we do that with a current transformer up here, and I've gone into reasons why it has to be up here and not down here. Ideally it wants to be down the bottom, but due to just the physical arrangement of the fuse box, that's not really practical. So both of these systems have transformers in there, and due to and then it's got to subtract the production from the consumption, and then it can figure out which way the current's flowing and give you a read-in for how much current is flowing into your load, how much your house is using. So the changes we're making in this video is we don't want the Enphase system to measure the total production anymore. We don't want these two transformers. So what we need to do is to get rid of one of those transformers. That should be easy enough. But we can't just do that because, as I've shown in that previous video, this is what screws up because the current measurement transformers are up here for the consumption transformers. It screws it up because this Enphase system doesn't know about the power being delivered from this 3 kilowatt system up to here like this. So, yeah. Oops, sorry, I just realized that the capture wasn't following my cursor here. I'm moving my cursor around, but it's... sorry. Anyway, so the Enphase system now won't know about this 3 kilowatt system here. It doesn't know that it's producing power here during the day, and that screws up the measurement that is fed back into here. So it gives you a wrong consumption figure down here. So we need to fix that. How do we do it? Aha! Bit of wiring trickery. Right, so what we need to do is let me just redraw this. We've still got our transformer in there. So let's redraw this transformer bigger. Stick with me, there's a reason why, okay? So it's still measuring that, okay? But it needs to know about this 3 kilowatt system here. So what we need to do is put this 3 kilowatt system up through this transformer up here and then back down and out like that. Aha. So let me just redraw that. It'll now come out of here like this. It'll go up, jump over that, and through this transformer like this, and then back out into here like this. So it's still producing power like that. It's just that we're putting it through that same we're putting the production of the 3 kilowatt system through the consumption measurement transformer, if that makes sense. So just imagine that we've got 1 amp flowing into our house like this, okay? And we've got 2 amps flowing out of our 3 kilowatt system like this. And let's say we've got 3 amps flowing out of our 5 kilowatt system like this. Let's see what happens here. Now, the only thing we care about is the consumption here, because the production measurement here and here, that's not affected at all. That is still the same. So it's not affected by doing this at all. So it's still going to measure, so the Enphase system here is still going to measure the correct 3 amp production of our 5 kilowatt system. It's just now going to ignore this one over here. It's still totally correct. But what's going to be wrong if we don't put this wire through here like this one here is going to measure wrong. So if we've got 1 amp flowing into our house and that's the correct measurement that we actually want, then we've got 3 amps flowing out of here, 2 amps here. We've got 5 amps total flowing into basically into the fuse box, which is here, okay? Flowing into the fuse box. 5 amps flowing in there, 1 amp coming out, therefore 4 amps must be coming out of here. Let me draw that. So I'll draw that in there. We will have now 4 amps flowing out of there. But if we don't put this loop through here like this, if we just have it coming straight out like there that we had before, then this current transformer here will read negative 4 amps as our house power consumption. It won't measure the 1 amp. But now, because we've got the wire going through there like that, there's going to be an additional 2 amps on this current transformer here that it's actually measuring. It's just going to be in the opposite direction. So we've got our 4 amps flowing in this direction like this, but now, because we put the wire through here like this, in the opposite direction, we have 2 amps flowing through here. Let me draw that. Flows in the opposite direction like that. So that equals 2 amps flowing in this direction like this, but it knows, or it thinks, that it's only producing 3 amps over here. It doesn't know about this sneaky 2 amps. We've been a sneaky bugger and subtracted this by going through here like this. And so it gives 2 amps. So it just does its usual thing of taking the 3 amps, subtracting the 2 amps to then give you the correct result of 1 amp flowing into your house like this. So by putting that sneaky wire through there, we've tricked the Enphase system into, because it's only measuring that, to subtract this out and give us this figure here. Clear as mud? Let's go have a look on the switchboard. All right, let's have a look at the switchboard again. So we don't want to touch the solar analytics system that we've got here, because it's measuring the total power consumption. As we saw in the previous video, it's got the production one from both the new system and the old system down here as well. So the 5 kilowatt and the 3 kilowatt system has got those two in parallel. So it's measuring the total production, and then it's also measuring the consumption based on the main fuse and the main wire up there. So what we want to change is the Enphase Envoy measurement system, which is up in the box there, and it's also got exactly the same, or had the same configuration. It has 2 production transformers in parallel, one for the 5 kilowatt system, one for the 3 kilowatt system, and also the same consumption current transformer up here as well. So we want to actually change just the Envoy system. So I didn't bother disconnecting it up there, because all we need to do is, let's just whip this panel out here. Here we go. All I had to do was leave one of the current transformers not connected to anything. No, it won't pick up any stray currents or anything like that. You have to physically have the wire actually going through the core there. So if you just leave it disconnected, doesn't matter that you got it in parallel, no worries whatsoever. So that was step number 1. So now it's only measuring the production from the new 5 kilowatt. So the other production transformer that's in parallel, it's not actually in the box here. It's not actually on there. It's actually up in there, which we didn't have to actually touch. So what we have to do now, so the change I had to make, if you remember, the consumption transformer, which is this one here, it was up the top here. It was just on that main 60 amp breaker coming into the property here. This is the one for the solar analytics system, so I haven't touched that at all. So this one used to be up here. Where you actually put it there actually makes no difference. So it's still there, but what we want to do is actually subtract what's coming from the old 3 kilowatt system, because it doesn't know about this. This Envoy system, all it knows about is the 5 kilowatts coming from here. So anything extra put in by any additional solar panels, we have to actually subtract. And the way you do that is, you can see, hopefully, that I've got an extra wire running through there like that. And if you follow the money, follow it down, it actually goes into here, and that is the main switch for the 3 kilowatt system. So it depends on the orientation of that wire, which whether it's current's flowing that way or that way, whether or not it subtracts from it. But I didn't have to touch the wiring, I just had enough lead length going from here up there, well, through the transformer there, and over to the main. This is the main breaker for the whole house. So the 3 kilowatt production runs through the transformer that measures the consumption. So if you put it through the opposite direction, it will subtract it out, and it all comes out in the maths in the end. So yeah, that's the only change. So I just really, the only thing I had to do was move the transformer from here down to here, which doesn't make any difference electrically. It's still the same. I only moved it down here so I could physically get this wire through that transformer. Otherwise, I would have had to, disconnect these and actually extend the wire out. But I physically just had enough length. Sometimes Murphy's asleep when you do stuff. So, yep, I know this fuse box is a mess, but yeah, that's a 1980s vintage Aussie fuse box. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Anyway, yeah, there you go. So now the solar analytics system measures the entire production and the entire consumption, and the Enphase Envoy system up here measures only the Enphase production, so the new 5 kilowatt system production, but it also measures the whole household consumption as well. And for my purposes, that is the best way to do it, because the solar analytics system has much better measurement resolution than the Enphase Envoy system. So it can give you 5-minute sample interviews and intervals, and can actually go down to as little as 5 seconds if you want to view the live data. So it just has greater resolution on the data. So there you go. Because it was kind of pointless having both systems, solar analytics and the Enphase Envoy, measuring exactly the same thing. What was the point? So yeah, now the Enphase system just measures its own thing, and solar analytics measures my whole house production and consumption. So anyway, hope you found that interesting. If you did, give it a big thumbs up. As always, discuss down below. Catch you next time.